Welcome to Campaign Chronicles, our daily look at the race to be the next French president. Today we're looking at the third man in the running, centrist François Bayrou. He caused a surprise in 2007 by winning 18% of first-round votes. Not quite enough to get through to the second round, though. But this year he's hoping to go one better. And for more on this, I'm now joined by a press reviewer, Elena Casas. Hello, Elena. Now, what sets François Bayrou apart from the other candidates?
Well, he announced his policy programme yesterday and a new slogan. He wants a united France, as they say on the front page of La Croix. But what's special about him? What is his policy programme? Well, inside the paper La Croix, they set out his main ideas. The key planks of it are the Made in France idea, things like encouraging small businesses to produce things in France. Of course, as we said, a lot of the other candidates have pinched this idea from him. But he was the first one to make it a key campaign theme. So he said yesterday that he would create a regional bank to help small businesses get extra funding to bring their production back to France, that kind of thing. He's also very religious, very Catholic, so he says he would make morality in politics a key campaign theme. He's got a lot to say about all of the various scandals that have shaken the Sarkozy presidency and measures that he says would stop politicians behaving like this in the future, like stopping them from accumulating various different jobs in the private and public sectors, and even cutting ministers and the president's salary as a method of cutting public spending and the amount that politicians profit from it at the same time, if you like. He also thinks education's terribly important. That's one of his key planks, a more traditional kind of education, he calls it, than what exists at the moment. And he's also, interestingly, been compared by that paper to the British Liberal Democrats, an example in Europe of some centrists who've got themselves into power. They say if he did get into power, he'd be in a similar position because he'd need to create a coalition from other parties to sort of govern, and then he'd be treading just as much of a narrow and tricky political line as they are. Now, they say in that paper, and I think they're probably right, that most of the people who voted Liberal Democrat in the past probably won't again because their presence in government has had a bit of a polarising effect. If you like what they're doing in government with the Conservatives, you'd probably vote Conservative. If you don't, you'll probably vote Labour. It's if you like, they've sort of erased the political space in the centre, the paper says, by taking power. So maybe it's just not a good idea for centrists to be in power. That's what they say, using that example. Maybe they just need to be an alternative voice on the sidelines.
Right, now François Bayrou famously predicted the economic crisis, didn't he?
Yes, that's what he's famous for, if you like. On the front page of Le Point today, they've got him as a prophet, is what they say on their front page, which is, of course, back when he was running for president in 2007, he effectively predicted the economic crisis which took place starting the following year. So he's got this reputation as being an excellent economic mind because of that. And inside Le Point, they say, as you might expect for someone who's known for that, there's some quite tough budget measures in his proposal as well, not only cutting the president's salary, but also cutting quite a lot of things in social security and raising higher taxes on high earners. So he says he would make everyone pay equally, if you like. There's also an opinion poll inside Le Point which says 60% of the French have a positive opinion of him, which is higher than Sarkozy or Hollande, which is, I suppose, clear for a centrist. He's going to be less polarising, isn't he, than either of those figures. But it's a pretty good statistic. It's up 13 points on when they last did a popularity poll a few months ago. But of course, that doesn't mean those people would vote for him. And he's also written a book, which is out today, with the headline United France, which they've published extracts from in Le Point.
What's in the book then?
Well, he sets out some of his proposals that we've mentioned already. He also attacks both François Hollande and Nicolas Sarkozy quite harshly. He accuses Nicolas Sarkozy of being linked to all kinds of corruption scandals, as I mentioned, and of parachuting people close to him into the high levels of the justice system and of the public media like French television. He says if he ever becomes president, he's going to make sure the media and the justice system are allowed to be more independent instead of putting his own cronies in. He also plans a zero budget increase in 2013. He says if he becomes president, so that would mean pretty big budget cuts to balance the budget as quickly as he says. He actually promises to balance it more quickly than Nicolas Sarkozy, which means more cuts, although he'd also have tax rises in that Sarkozy wouldn't consider. There's no guarantee, though, that any of this will really translate into votes. There's also a piece about him in Le Figaro today talking about those contrasting polls that we've had so much to say about this week. He says he basically accuses both François Hollande and Nicolas Sarkozy of deliberately commanding polls that make themselves look good. He says both of the main parties, the UMP and the PS, need to publish how much money exactly they're spending on communication, marketing and their campaigns, especially if they've paid any money directly to polling companies, because he reckons that the convenience of some polls, the days that they came out and who they make look good, is just a little bit too convenient, if you like. He thinks they're paying for them.
All right, and remind us how he's doing in the polls then?
Well, it really depends which poll you're on, but he's
Right.
on about 15% at the moment, which isn't quite good enough to get through to the second round. He needs to give that quite a big boost if he is going to do better than he did the last time round. So he's got to try and make the most of it. Of course, starting Monday, he'll get the same amount of media time by law as Hollande and Sarkozy, so maybe he'll be able to take off then.
All right, thank you very much, Elena. That's it for Campaign Chronicles, and that's it from all of us here on Live from Paris. Thanks for watching. Don't go away.